theory, performance, rhythm, harmony, line and form, acoustics, notation, orchestration, timbre, neurology, and perception. These are the keys to understanding music. Hello, and welcome to Understanding Music. For most people, the first big hurdle in understanding music is the concept of a key and its key signature. Actually, that's not really true. A key and its key signature is not that difficult. What is difficult is that there are many keys, 15 to be exact. 15 real key signatures and a whole bunch of imaginary ones that all intertwine and use the same 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Only sometimes they use sharps, sometimes they use flats, sometimes they have naturals. And the difference between one key and another key is as small as just taking one note and putting it up a semitone, and now you have a different key. So keeping track of all that is the difficulty, and that's what we're going to start to look at today. I imagine this will be done in a few videos, one on the basic concept of a key and its key signature and how they intertwine, another one on the practicalities of using these key signatures, and then a third one specifically on a symbol/concept called the circle of fifths. So, let's get right to it. So what is a key? A diatonic key, we'll keep away from the weird things that composers can make up. A diatonic key is a group of 7 notes that fit together in a particular way that we have realized over centuries that we like music to be. Now, if you look up the definition of the word key, you usually get a very long, rambling definition that I don't think is really precise. And even the definition I just gave you is not that precise. You do have to go into detail. Some of the details are, if we're talking about a major key, and just for a moment, there are different kinds of keys. And when we talk about keys, I think the easiest way to look at them is to look at them all from one viewpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at major keys. And there are minor keys and there are modes, but you can always relate them to a major key. So when we talk about a key center, we usually refer to its major key center. So the way it works for a major key is there are 2 rules, and we've already looked at these rules when we looked at the scale. The melody has to conform to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that is the melody of a major scale. Those are the 7 notes in that particular key. I don't know what key I'm singing in because I don't have perfect pitch. Do. Not even close. So that's the note F. So I am singing the scale of F major. To put that in note names, I know those are going to be the notes F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And so I'm going to show you how that works. And the way I'm going to do it is to show you how historically they figured this stuff out. And all of this understanding came out of, I guess it's the Renaissance. Throughout the 14th century, composers figured out what all the in-between notes are, the note between do and re and mi, also so and la and ti, and fa and so. And then eventually they realized, oh, that means that there are many keys. So I'm going to show you the progression of thought they went through to make that realization. The shape of the piano keyboard shows us the relationships of the notes in terms of one key, the key of C major. If we look at the piano keyboard, we see the grouping of 3 black notes and the grouping of 2. Just to the left of the grouping of 2 is the note C. And each one of these white notes gets a sequentially higher note name. So if we go backwards from C, that white note is called B, that white note is called A. There are 7 different notes, and they're called A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that goes on throughout the range of music. If we start on the note C and I play 8 notes in a row, I end up playing what is called a C major scale. The note C is the first note of that scale, so we call that note the tonic. The tonic is very important because that's the name of the key. Now, the words key and scale are very closely related. A scale is just a particular orderly progression of the notes in a key. And so when we talk about a scale and we talk about a key, we frequently are talking about the same things, even though they are two different concepts. Now, the notes in a scale, and therefore the notes in a key, have certain names that are different than do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, if we're talking about a major scale. Or the specific notes, in terms of C major, would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B. They also have function names. The first note of the scale is called the tonic, and it is the most important note in the scale because all the other notes in the key relate to that note. And all the other notes in the scale, and therefore in the key, have a particular energy depending on their relationship to that tonic. Probably the most important note in the scale other than the tonic is the fifth note of the scale, which is called the dominant. Two notes separated by 5 scale steps that are also 7 semitones apart. The second note of the scale is called the supertonic. In music, the prefix super means higher than or above, so the note above the tonic is called the supertonic. The third note of the scale is called the mediant. It is called this because it is halfway between the tonic and the dominant in terms of scale steps. And it is important because it has to do with the quality of the scale and the quality of the chord that will be built on the first note of the scale. The fourth note of the scale is one below the dominant. The prefix sub in music means lower than or below, and so the note that is below the dominant is called the subdominant. The sixth note of the scale is called the submediant, because if we go down from the tonic, it is the note that is halfway between the subdominant and the tonic, and that is important because of the 4 chord, and we'll get into that later. It is also the tonic of the related minor scale, and that's its biggest importance. And so the last note is called the leading tone. It's the only one that has a 2-word name, and it gets its name from the energy we hear in the combination of the tonic and that 7th note, which is very bright and has a tendency to want to lead towards the tonic. And then you get a sense of resolution. The key of C major involves the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, all natural notes, which is what we call the white notes on the keyboard, natural notes. It is usually referred to as the easiest key because it only involves the white notes and the natural notes. All the other keys are going to have to use some kind of accidental. Now, the way they realize that is by analyzing the key of C major. If we take a look at the key of C major, as we've seen when we were looking at the scale, it consists of 2 what we call tetrachords. A tetrachord is a 4-note group that makes a little melody. And they realized that the major scale was one of these, what we call a major tetrachord, which is starting on a note, and then we go up a whole tone, and then we go up a whole tone, and then we go up a semitone. In terms of the piano keyboard, we see that we start on a note, and then we skip over that black note, and we go to that note. So that's our whole tone, going up 2 half steps, 2 semitones. And then the next one is also a whole tone, but between the notes E and F, there is no in-between note. So the melody is... And then they went up a tone, and then they played another one of those melodies. And so they realized the major scale was a major tetrachord, and then you go up another tone, and then another major tetrachord, or 2 major tetrachords separated by a whole tone. Because one was lower in pitch than the other one, they called the lower tetrachord the lower tetrachord, and the one that was higher in pitch they called the upper tetrachord. It was at that point that composers, theorists, anybody doing the music thing started to think, well, if we have 2 tetrachords and they're both the same, what if we called the upper tetrachord of C the lower tetrachord of something else and put one on top of that? Could we not come up with another scale? And they tried that, and what they ended up with was this. Starting on C, and they go up. So taking that tetrachord, and that just didn't sound right because you don't have a semitone at the very end. What they actually had was a minor tetrachord. And what they needed to do to turn it into a major tetrachord was raise that third note, which ended up being the seventh note of this new scale. So to have a proper do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, starting on G, they needed to come up with a concept of what they were going to do with this F note. Now, they knew there was a whole tone between F and G, and there was that semitone in between. So what they decided to do was call that a sharp, and thus we had the concept of sharps and flats, which we looked at in the accidentals video. So this scale that they're now going to call G major has the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, all natural notes, and F sharp. So we say the key of G major needs one sharp, the note F sharp, and all the other notes are natural. So once they did this, they said, oh, can we do the same thing to this G major scale? And so they took that scale, went up to the fifth note, and did the same thing. They took the notes of G major, which starting at that point would be the note D, E, F sharp, G, for the lower tetrachord, and then they go up a tone, and then they played the next four notes, and again they had a minor tetrachord, so they needed to raise the third note of that tetrachord to make it a major tetrachord, which turned out to be again the seventh note of the scale. And so the key of what we now call D major has the notes D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. And this starts up a pattern. If we go to the fifth note of D, then we're at the note A. If we want to write the major scale of A major, we'll use the same notes of D major, starting on A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and then instead of a G natural, we need to raise that up to G sharp. If we go to the fifth note of A major, we get to the note E. If we take the notes of A major and write them out starting on E, to end up with a proper T do at the end, we need to raise the D natural to a D sharp. And the same thing with the fifth note of E. If we go to its fifth note, that's the note B natural. B natural, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp. Now we have to sharpen the A to make a proper T do in the key of B. So if we go to the fifth note of B major, we're at the note F sharp. And in the same way, once we get to its seventh note, it can't be an E natural, it has to be raised. Now, some people want to call that an F, but we already have an F note. Remember, the two rules of writing a scale are that it has to follow the melody of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And the second rule is you have one and one only of each of the pitch classes, which are the notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, including all their accidental versions. So we have to call the seventh note of this scale E sharp. So there is a note E sharp. But in C major, we would never use that because in C major, the note one semitone above E is F, because that's a note in the scale. But in the key of F sharp major, that's not the case. So yes, there is a note E sharp, and it happens in the key of F sharp major. So if we go to the fifth note of F sharp major, that brings us to C sharp major. C sharp major may be a hard key to play on many instruments, but in terms of thinking about it, it's not that difficult. You just take all the notes of C natural, C major, and you put them up a semitone. So every single note in the key of C sharp major needs to have a sharp. So the notes are C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, and C sharp. So we use the two weird notes. And people say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, it does because there are 7 notes, but we only have 5 black notes. So 2 of the keys are going to have sharps that are actually white notes. It's as simple as that. Okay, this is turning into a long video, so I'm going to break this up into 2 parts. So join me in the next video where we will continue to look at the keys that use flats, and we'll get an introduction to the circle of fifths. See you soon.